Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy, the Mad Tiger, and up here today, guys, I thought I'd share with you 15 sitcoms that I've watched in the last, I don't know, year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe up to 5 years. I want to start off by saying that I actually really enjoy sitcoms, and I've got a bit of a selection here, from American sitcoms to some British sitcoms on here. And I really enjoy sitcoms. I think sitcoms can be quite a lot of fun. When I think of sitcom, I think of, in front of a studio audience type thing. But there are some sitcoms that don't do that. Situational comedy. I really enjoy sitcoms. I'd say sitcoms are probably, in my top 3 favourite genres of TV show. And I'm going to do more videos like this at some point. I'll probably do like a top 15 animated shows, some top cartoons, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go through these, and just bear in mind, if there's a sitcom on here that isn't on here, it's because I haven't watched it. Bear in mind, 90% of the stuff on here, with the exception of 2, I've watched all the way through, sometimes maybe more than once. So first up is 2.5 Men. This is the show that I'm still currently watching. I'm towards the end of season 9 now. I actually really enjoying 2.5 Men. I think it is quite a formulaic, comedy, situational comedy. It's 2 brothers, obviously. Charlie Sheen, of course. Unfortunately, it is one of them shows that and this is another show that I'll mention in a little while, where one of the main characters was killed off. Unfortunately, it was because of Charlie Sheen's real life behaviour, unfortunately. So that caused him to have to be kicked off the show, because he was quite a dangerous person at that time, drinking, drugs, his lifestyle. I'm really enjoying 2.5 Men. It's the sort of usual situation comedy. It's got a lot of hijinks and things. Of course, Charlie being the sort of womanizer, whereas Alan sort of the tries to be a decent guy. I think it's a fun show. It's definitely a show that's worth checking out. I'd say it's more geared towards maybe a more teen to adult audience. It's probably not great for the younger audience because there's a lot of sex and jokes and things in there that will go over your head. But I think it's a great show. Unfortunately, like I said, once Ashton Kutcher come into the show, it sort of went downhill a little bit. And that happens a lot when you've got a situation comedy where a main character is killed off or leaves the show, and they try to replace them. The reason I really enjoyed it was because Charlie and Alan were very opposite people, which is very formulaic when it comes to sitcom. You take 2 different people that are polar opposites, and Ashton Kutcher is a bit more sort of, in a way, he's kind of like Alan in some senses, so it doesn't have that sort of effect that it did have for the first 8 seasons. But I suppose if you don't want to watch the stuff with Ashton Kutcher, you can, you can just watch the first 8 seasons, I guess. 12 seasons show, so it is a long show, just under 300 episodes, give or take. But I think it's a decent show. Next is probably one of the most well-known sitcoms, and that is Happy Days. I've only seen seasons 1, 2, 2 and 3, maybe 4 as well. Unfortunately, they haven't released anything after season 6. I know a lot of people said, well, after Fonzie jumped the shark, kind of the show was sort of like done there. They sort of, well, that's the end of the show, basically. Happy Days is, in my opinion, when I think of sitcom, that's like the first thing that comes to mind. It's a very wholehearted sitcom, of course, about a family. Of course, Arthur Fonzarelli is probably one of the most recognisable TV characters. Everyone thinks it's a 60s show. It's not. It was a show made in the 70s, based in the 50s, and I think it's a great show. Definitely worth checking out. I'd say it's more geared, it's a more family orientated TV show. I think it can be great for people from, you know, young teenagers to adults, but it got a lot of older, you know, 50s and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff in there that's modern audiences probably wouldn't appreciate or understand. But it's still a legendary show. The next one is another show that I haven't finished yet, and that is That 70s Show. I really enjoyed it. I was a bit pissed off because I started it on Netflix, and they took it off Netflix, but I have since got the complete box set on DVD. I only watched the first season and maybe about 10-15 episodes of the second season. But I really enjoyed That 70s Show, what I have watched of it anyway. And I think it's definitely worth mentioning, you know, that it's one of them shows that I think it's got a lot of wholeheartedness again, and they are doing a new version of it. They've done that 80s show, which unfortunately didn't do very well, but they are doing that 90s show with some of the original cast coming back, which I think a lot of people are excited for, but skeptical, and it's understandable. The next one is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which isn't a traditional sitcom. It's one of them sitcoms that isn't based in front of a live audience. It doesn't have the laugh track or anything like that. But it's a really funny show. It's you know, based on a precinct police department. I really enjoyed Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've seen all of the episodes. I haven't seen the newest season or the last season that they've done. That's not on Netflix or anything yet, but I really enjoyed Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Of course, Terry Crews is in it, and I love Terry Crews. Everybody, Terry loves yogurt. It's a really funny show, lots of hijinks and stuff. It's more modernised as well, so I'd say it's more geared towards a teenage to adult audience, because again, it's got a lot of adult themes and stuff in there. But it's a really funny show. If you watch the older police comedy shows like Police Squad or something like that, you might appreciate that sort of police comedy type thing. The next one is The Office, and when I say The Office, I'm on about the US version of The Office. I haven't actually watched the British version, which is really weird. Normally I'm the other way around. But The Office, in my opinion, I've watched that show through twice. I really like the sort of pseudo documentary style, you know, which is it's done in other shows, you know, where they have the parts where they're interviewing and they're talking to the camera, and it feels like you're watching a documentary, but it's a docutainment, should I say. I really enjoyed The Office. Of course, Steve Carell was fantastic. And unfortunately, once he left the show, the show did sort of go downhill a little bit. And one of the biggest complaints that I had with it was with the whole Jim and Pam romance type thing. And towards the last season, they sort of made it go in a weird direction. But it's one of the most recognisable modern sitcoms, and it's got a great you know, thing. Of course, Dwight, the characters are great, because that's the best part about sitcoms. If you don't care about the characters, you haven't got a show. And The Office, every character in The Office is recognisable, has their own sort of mannerisms and type of, you know, charismatic in their own way. My favourite characters would definitely be Michael, Dwight, and of course, I really enjoy Kevin, because he reminds me of my friend. Yeah, so the next one is probably one of the most recognisable English sitcoms, and that is Only Fools and Horses. There's not enough I can say about Only Fools and Horses other than it is a masterpiece of a TV show, and I'm going to be doing a video dedicated to my favourite moments on Only Fools and Horses, so I won't talk too much about this one because that will be coming soon. But Only Fools and Horses, a show about two brothers and their granddad, and then later replaced by their uncle, who are just trying to get by, and, you know, dealing with hooky goods. For those of you in the US, hooky means, you know, dodgy, you know, not legal, should I say, stuff. And if you haven't watched Only Fools and Horses and you're British, what are you doing with your life? But for other audiences outside of the UK, it's probably a show that you probably won't appreciate too much. But if you are, from other countries, I definitely recommend checking it out. But you probably won't get it because it's from like an earlier time in Britain. So, but it's a show I grew up with, and I absolutely love it. The next one is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, another fantastic show. Very, really, it's one of them African American comedies, with an African American family, and it deals with a lot of real life, events and stuff regarding, the African American community in America at that time. And it's a great show. It's got a lot of heart to it. It's very funny, of course. Will Smith, a young Will Smith, but that moment, that one moment where he starts crying about his dad, that was the moment that a lot of people looked at Will Smith and said, this guy is going to be a real actor. That's when the guy who played Uncle Phil actually said to Will Smith, and that's how you do it, and that's how you do it. The acting. Because it hit him hard at the time. And it's a fantastic show, full of great light-hearted moments, but also some great dramatic moments as well. And you really care about the characters in the show as well. And again, it does deal with some real-life prejudice and things like that. So, and that's important that a show can do that and give real-life messages and stuff like that. The next one is another one of my all-time favourite shows, and that is Blackadder. I don't think enough can be said about Blackadder other than the fact that it's a show that at the time was considered to be a failure. But actually, as it grew, it became really, really respected amongst the community. It's got 4 seasons and a couple of specials, each season being their own thing. I've got a soft spot for the first season, and, I'm going to probably do another video dedicated to Blackadder as well, but it's a historical situation comedy. Rowan Atkinson, one of my all-time favourite actors. Really, really funny show. Even if you're not British, you can probably enjoy it as well, because even though it's based in different periods of British history, I think you can still appreciate it even if you're not British. The final episode, the World War I episode where they go over the top, was such a very dramatic moment and so well done. And I am going to do another sort of video of my top moments from Blackadder as well. Next, probably my favourite American sitcom is Friends. I've watched Friends about 3 or 4 times all the way through. I love Friends. Again, it really fits that sitcom. I'd say Friends, in a way, is kind of like a modernised version of Happy Days in some senses, in the sense that it's based on, even though they're not necessarily a family, they are based on 6 characters, and they've got great chemistry. There's a lot of drama to the show as well. The whole Rachel Ross situation, we were on a break. It really fits the sitcom so well. It's got the usual places within a sitcom. A sitcom normally has a set amount of characters and certain places that they go. So in Happy Days it would be the house, and the Arnold's diner, whereas in Friends, again, it's the houses, the apartment, should I say, and the cafe. I think Friends is a must watch for sitcom fans. If you haven't watched Friends, I'd highly recommend it. Next one is Big Bang Theory. I really enjoy Big Bang Theory because Big Bang Theory, in my opinion, is like a geeky version of Friends in a way. In the sense that, it's about a group of friends, but it's all geeky stuff, it's all to do with, it's got a lot of geek references, like video game references, movie references, science and Marvel and comics and stuff like that. Some great, episodes again. The final episode was really well done. I thought they wrapped up quite nicely, and of course Sheldon went off and got a spin-off of a young Sheldon, which I haven't checked out yet, but I think Big Bang Theory was the show that actually a lot of people don't give enough credit. I thought it was really well done and I really enjoyed it. Next is Allo Allo. I really enjoyed Allo Allo. You stupid woman. Allo Allo is another sitcom from Britain, based in World War II France, with Renee, who is a cafe owner, and obviously he's it's a show that they couldn't get away with today, unfortunately, because it's got a lot of Germans and Nazism in the show. But it makes a lot of lightheartedness out of the war, which is why they couldn't get away with it. You know, Renee's always trying to help out these German officers, and it's a really funny show, and it's the show that I'm definitely going to have to rewatch. I really enjoyed Allo Allo, full of some great funny moments, and the characters are really well done. My favourite character probably had to be, I can't remember the name, but it's the guy that goes Clop, and he makes me laugh so much. And of course, with the Gestapo characters, I can't remember, it's been a while since I watched it, but that was a really funny show. The next one is probably one of the most recognisable sitcoms if you lived in Britain, and that is Fawlty Towers. A show that only had 12 episodes, but what a great 12 episodes. I'm going to be doing a video talking about every single episode, rating them from my favourite to, well, I wouldn't say least favourite, but I'm going to rate them from 1 to 12. Fawlty Towers is one of the greatest sitcoms ever made, and probably one of the best British shows ever made. Mr. Fawlty, John Cleese, absolutely amazing actor, of course, well known from Monty Python. And if you've watched Monty Python, you can definitely tell that this show was inspired in some senses by Monty Python, but it's a show that I must highly recommend. The next one is another show that I watched, was How I Met Your Mother. In many ways, How I Met Your Mother reminds me a lot of Two and a Half Men in some senses. And I think Two and a Half Men would have been great to do a crossover with How I Met Your Mother. Just imagine Barney from How I Met Your Mother and Charlie from Two and a Half Men having a conversation and going out and drinking and stuff. How I Met Your Mother, I enjoyed it. Again, it's quite formulaic, group of people, but my biggest complaint was the way that they ended it, which is, I'm sorry if this is a spoiler alert, but they spent the whole show building up, you know, this woman who was the mother, basically, only to kill her off at the end and have the guy go back to the woman in the first episode. I thought it was really stupid, and a lot of people agree with me on that one, but I still thought it was a decent show. Another one is Parks and Recreation, which I think is basically The Office 2.0 in some senses. It has that same sort of style, pseudo documentary style to it, but I thought Parks and Recreation was a lot of fun. It was basically The Office, but with a female lead. You know, instead of Michael, I forgot the name of the character in it, but the blonde woman, I forgot her name, I'm so sorry, it's been a while, but it reminds me a lot of The Office. The characters are very similar actually to the characters in The Office. Some people would say that it's you know, a rip-off of The Office. I wouldn't say that. I'd say it's very inspired. I think it was actually made by the same people who did The Office, or worked on by some of the same people. I don't know, but I really enjoyed Parks and Recreation. And then the last one, before I mention 5 honourable mentions, well, I say honourable mentions, but shows that I also watch. And the last one is Red Dwarf. Ironically, it's right in front of me. Red Dwarf is another fantastic sitcom, and just a great, it reminds me of Red Dwarf, in my opinion, is Blackadder in space, in the sense that it's based on a small contained space, but with a few characters, basically. Arnold Rimmer, of course, you know, the hologram, and then you've got the Krychen, the robot, and then, you know, David Lister, of course, the main character. But it's a really funny show. It is a spoof of, you know, Star Trek, Star Wars, a lot of these 70s, 60s, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s sci-fi TV shows and movies. But I really enjoy Red Dwarf. My favourite episode is when they go to the world where everything's going backwards in time. I really enjoyed it. I haven't watched any of the newer stuff, but it's definitely a show that I highly recommend. And then I've got 5 other shows here that I have watched. One that I actually haven't watched, but it needs to be mentioned. First up was Moesha. Moesha was another African-American TV show, but it was more of a teenaged audience. I could definitely tell that it was geared towards a more teenage audience. Although I wasn't happy with the way that they ended it. They ended it on a cliffhanger, and they were meant to do a spin-off with one of the characters from that show and explain what happened, but it never came to light. So if the people that made Moesha are watching this video, fucking do the ending, please. The next one, of course, Drake and Josh, another sitcom geared towards a teenage audience, a Nickelodeon sitcom. Drake and Josh, absolutely fantastic show. One that I grew up with. Of course, we know Drake Bell had that stuff that happened to him in real life, which kind of sucked. But I keep the Hollywood drama away from the TV shows, to be honest. Another one that I watched, another teenage audience one, was Sister Sister, the one with the two twin sisters. I thought it was a decent show. I really enjoy African American comedy. I say African American because they are African American. You know, I guess maybe they're not actual African, but you know what I mean. Black people and comedians. I really enjoy their stuff. I actually prefer African American comedy to a lot of British white comedy because I just really think they've got great presence and great, you know, skills. But I really enjoyed Sister Sister as well. And then two more British sitcoms that I've watched in the last couple of months and years. Rise and Damp. I think Rise and Damp was a really underrated show. Again, it is a sitcom, only got a few characters in the show. It is a little bit more slower paced, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then the last one is Yes Minister. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a huge fan of Yes Minister, but I did watch it all the way through. It's a political sort of, you know, government-based British comedy, so if you're not really into that sort of thing, you might not enjoy it. But it has got some funny moments in there, but it's more wit rather than, you know, jokes and stuff. It's more just the occasional joke here and there instead of, you know, a lot of, you know, physical comedy. But there we go, guys. There's 20, 15 shows, 20 sitcoms that I've watched in the last couple of years. If you enjoyed today's video, feel free to leave a like and of course comment below. Let me know what sitcoms you like, any that you recommend. I have got some on the back list. I said I've got Cheers down there, Will and Grace is well down there that I need to watch. I've got a few others that are on my list. You know, Malcolm in the Middle is on there, of course. You know, My Wife and Kids. And as always, guys, subscribe if you haven't already and join the family. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at The Mad Tiger. And as always, have a nice day. Take care and bye-bye.